Good afternoon and Shana Tova. I hope you had an easy fast. As we kick off a new year, welcome to this Lunch and Learn webinar with Technion alumna Adi Hanuka, a rising star in the science world in a Forbes 30 under 30 selection. While we still can't be together in person, we're glad you've grabbed your laptop and lunch for what will no doubt be an interesting presentation and conversation. I'm David Marcus, a member of the ATS National Board of Directors and a member of the Southern California Board. I'm a supporter of Israel, and my work as a patent litigator brought me to Haifa nearly 10 years ago. I visited the Technion, learned of its many contributions to Israel and to the world, and I got hooked. It's been my honor to be involved with the Technion ever since. Together, we gather from Silicon Valley to the San Fernando Valley and beyond. And while we're in different places, we share a common passion for the Technion. Together, we're investing in the next generation of scientists and entrepreneurs like Adi, supporting innovations in human health such as rapid breath tests for COVID-19, in energy and sustainability through technology that creates water from heat, and in cybersecurity and cyber terrorism to keep Israel safe and secure. Simply put, we are positioning Technion to solve the greatest challenges of the 21st century that impact not only Israel, but the world. Just as Technion was central to Israel's history, it is integral to Israel's future. To our supporters, we say, thank you, Toda Rabah. To those who are new to ATS, we thank you for your interest today. When Technion held its first class in 1924, there were 17 students, including one female. Today, there are more than 14,000 students and more than 5,000 female students. 1/3 of master's degree students are women, and almost half of all doctoral students are women. Female faculty and alumna are developing technologies and launching startups across all disciplines across the whole world. Adi, who's with us today, is one of these incredible women. She graduated summa cum laude from the Technion with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, and also earned her PhD in electrical engineering at the Technion. She's now doing postdoctoral research at the Stanford Linear Accelerator in California. I'll now leave Adi to share her personal story and her Technion story with all of you. Thank you.
Hey, David.
One thing I neglected. Before we hear from Adi, and hello, Adi, I want to quickly share some info about how you can ask questions. Please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the webinar window. There you can type in your question and we'll address them after the presentation. Vicky Booter, who's the Senior Director of Development in the Bay Area, will join the program to moderate the Q&A. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible. I now invite you to sit back, enjoy your lunch, and hear how Adi's love of science took her to the Technion and around the world, her plans for the future, and how she's impacting the world one electron at a time. It's now my pleasure to welcome Dr. Adi Hanuka.
Hey, David, and hi, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me today. I'm very excited to be here, and I will share my screen. Yeah, so are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So today, I'd like to tell you a bit about my research with particle accelerators. But really, the broader notion of what I'd like to share with you is how science impacts my life. And with your permission, I'd like to take you all the way back to my family roots. So I was born and raised in Nesher, which is a small city on the outskirts of Haifa. But my family came from all over the world. My mom's side came from Russia and Lithuania. Some came very early on in the late 19th century, and some came on the 30s, the lucky few who managed to escape before the Holocaust. In this image, this is my great-grandmother. My father's family came from Egypt and Iraq, and in this image, you can see my great-grandparents in Egypt, and their kids made Aliyah to Israel in 1951. This is 3 years after Israel Independence Day, and Israel in those days was very, very poor, and its population was around 600,000. And within a time frame of 3 years, it needed to absorb another 700,000 refugees from the Arab countries. So the Israeli government made tent camps called ma'abara, from the Hebrew word ma'avar, which means passing through, since those camps meant to be temporary, but many of the families, like my family, spent there over 8 years. And this is my dad in Simchat Torah in Sukkot. And my dad was the first kid in his family to be born in a brick house. And 40 years later, I'm the first one in my extended family to pursue higher education. So I enrolled into the Technion. This is a bird's eye view of the Technion. Here you can see Haifa Bay. And after 3 years of service in the Army as a lieutenant, I enrolled into the electrical engineering department here in the yellow area. I pursued my bachelor, master's, and PhD there. And for my PhD, I did most of the theoretical work at Stanford, the Technion, but 30% of the experimental work I did at Stanford. And during one of my experiments at Stanford, I met my husband, Guy, during Shabbat dinner at Stanford's Chabad house. And 1.5 years ago, we moved to California with our baby girl, Ronnie, for my postdoc research. So before I'll tell you about particle accelerators, I want to share with you a project that I pursued during my bachelor degree. Professor Levi Schechter, Dr. Daniel Briscoe, and myself initiated a project to detect the pattern of the eyelid blinks, because ophthalmologists believe that there is a link between the blinking pattern to neurological diseases and other autoimmune diseases. So they needed a device to quantify those blinks. So we made a very simple principle from physics class, the first physics class. Basically, when you take a tiny magnet, for example, a magnet like our own Earth, which has magnetic fields, as you see here, the white lines. So we place this magnet on the upper eyelid, and when the patient blinks, those magnetic lines move in space, and then we just pick this change in the magnetic field with 4 sensors we have in each eye, and then we can quantify the blinking. So you can see here on the top there is one patient which didn't blink in one eye and blinked only in his right eye. And here is another patient where you can see there is a slight delay between the blinks. And the doctor can really learn a lot about the condition of the eyes, as well as other neurological conditions of the patient. So we made this device, and we collected lots of data, and it was under clinical trials for a few years. And then I wanted to share with you this thing. So we collected data from 4 sensors, numbered here 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can see the data from each sensor here. And there is one sensor that is really different from all the rest of them. And I think most of us can guess this. This is the first one. And we can see that the pattern here is very, very noisy. And we didn't realize why this sensor is so noisy compared to the others. But then if you could put your hand over here, you would probably feel your pulse. So basically the detector that was located here on the outer edge of the eye picked the pulse, and when we did analysis of the frequencies of this noise, we saw that we got the same frequency as our pulse and all its harmonics. So we made a device to quantify the eyelid blinking pattern, and we picked the pulse also on the way. Okay, so This is part of the great team of people that worked on it, the students and other collaborators, and this was a very fun project to work on. But as I mentioned, this was not my PhD project, so now I'd like to share with you a little bit of details about what is a particle accelerator. So my PhD research was about taking those mega accelerators used today and make teeny tiny accelerators out of those, and in order to place them on a chip. So what are particle accelerators used for today? They are used for discovery science, for particle and nuclear physics, for material science, to image proteins, for example. They're used in medicine for cancer therapy and medical radioisotopes. The industry, specifically the semiconductor industry, used them for ion implementation, for electron processing, and also 40 countries around Europe use them for sterilization. So for example, if you see this sign in your strawberries basket, it means that your strawberries were sterilized with an electron beam from particle accelerator. And of course, we can use them for security and for cargo. So particle accelerator is really when we take a subatomic particle and we accelerate it to the speed of light. And then this creates energy that we can harness for all of those applications. Usually the size of the accelerator could range from a size of a small room to a size of 3 football fields, or even a size of a small town like like CERN, the famous particle accelerator in Switzerland. And really what we want to do is we want to make our accelerators smaller, affordable, faster, and better, and to do to them what has been done in the field of computers over the past 70 years, from the first computer in 1946, which was the size of a room, to a small CPU. And this is our one of our accelerators in Fermilab in Chicago. So we want to shrink them to this micro accelerator size. So this is not an illustration, this is a real prototype of our device. And the nice thing about those tiny accelerators is that we can mass produce them. So here you can see a silica wafer where we produced 100 micro accelerators, and this is how they look like in a scanning electron microscope. There is a channel here where the electron passes and gain energy. Okay, so why do we care? Why do we want to shrink those particle accelerators? So let's take an example from radiation therapy. Usually in radiation therapy for cancer treatments, there is 1 meter long accelerator over here, which then creates X-ray energy that treats that tumor. Imagine that we could shrink this 1 meter long accelerator into a 1 millimeter size. Then we could fit all this big machine into a vessel in the size of a Coca-Cola can. And this has a lot of advantages. So first, the reduction in size translates to reduction in costs. And a smaller device would be much more portable. So we could place it in third world countries and also in smaller clinics rather than big hospital. And third thing is that these big machines have the smallest window is around 2 by 2 centimeters. So they can't really treat the exact contour of the tumor, whereas these small devices could be much more accurate and therefore decrease damage to healthy issue. And last thing is those big machines tend to rotate around the patient to deliver the radiation from different angles. So that's why the treatment takes longer. So if we have these smaller devices, we could just place a few of them around the patient and deliver the radiation all at once without having to wait for this big machine to rotate around the patient. So there are really lots of advantages in shrinking the accelerator. So let's take a deeper look at how particle accelerators work. So basically, every AA battery could be a particle accelerators. If we take a charged particle, like electron, which is a negative charged particle, and place it next to the negative plate, then it would be repelled, and it will accelerate towards the positive plate. As it accelerates, it gains energy, and then we can take this energy and harness it to the different applications. And there is an important measure of acceleration that we call accelerating gradient, which is the potential energy gained. Here it's 1.5 volts divided by the distance traveled. So here it's 1 meter. So here we say the accelerating gradient is 1.5 volts per meter. Now imagine that at Stanford Linear Accelerator, which is 2 miles long, we need 50 million volts per meter. So we would need 30 million AA batteries to power SLAC. Obviously, it's not the way we do this. And we take a different approach to accelerate the electrons. We use light. So how does it work? We take a vacuum chamber and we put a light in it that we can just think about it as a sinus wave. And if we place the electron on the accelerating phase, then the electron is being accelerated. Same like a surfer who catches wave in the ocean. If he's right on the crest, right, then he could accelerate or increase velocity. However, if the electron is placed on any other phase of this light, then it will be decelerated, or like our poor surfer who just going off the wave. So this is the basic concept of accelerating with light. And I'd like to share with you the relativity theory by Einstein. So we have this velocity versus energy graph. So as the velocity increases, we increase the energy, right? But then at some point, the velocity gets to the speed of light, and you know, nothing in nature can travel greater than the speed of light. So at this point, we get into the relativistic regime where we practically do not change the velocity of the particle. It moves nearly in the speed of light, but we can still elevate the energy. So this is where the particle accelerator operates. So we are here and we want to continue elevating the particle's energy. So we work with relativistic beam, very, very fast beam. So with this in mind, let's see the experimental setup. We have three actors. One is the laser, our light. One is the electron beam, and here is our structure. And all of these actors need to play together in order to see an acceleration. And one of the main difficulties for us would be to get this electron beam inside this teeny tiny structure. Basically, we could get only 2% of the beam inside the structure. And another big challenge was to put the laser and the electron beam to make them overlap both spatially in space and also temporally, so in time, because we deal with a very short bunches. This is a picosecond bunches, so it means 10 to minus 12 seconds. So here is the lab where all the experiments took place. And here in the middle, there is the vacuum chamber where the real magic took place. As you can see, we jam-packed everything we could put into this box. Every diagnostics and of course the accelerator is right here. And we monitored from a headquarters the experiment because this generates a lot of radiation, so everything was done remotely. Last time I counted was 33 screens monitoring every single thing we could in this experiment. And this was our demonstration of this idea of how to shrink this accelerator into a 1 millimeter size accelerator. So we really hope to pave the way to make accelerators just as powerful as the giant one, but in a shoe size box that we can all handle. Most of the theoretical work was done at the Technion, and for the experiments, I was fortunate to travel to UCLA in Los Angeles, to Stanford University, and to Fermilab in Chicago. And I also was fortunate to visit India. Really, science took me all over the world, and this is very exciting. And before I'll finish, I'd like to share with you what I'm currently doing for my postdoc. So today I'm working on physics-informed machine learning for autonomous data-efficient learning machines. So our dream is to be able to sit with a laptop and coffee in Hawaii and watch the accelerator controls itself and generating this radiation. And when I talk about learning machines, what I mean is really to give the machine some sort of artificial intelligence, which means that to teach them some type of intelligence like reasoning. So let's take an example from cars. I'm sure that most of us heard about autonomous cars or self-driving cars, but the pyramid of artificial intelligence must start from a manual thing. So this is just a car, right? Then we add some actionable info that we could act on. So here we have a backup camera, for example. And with this, we can make some active assisted like auto parking or auto braking. And then we can fully automate the car. So taking this concept and applying it to accelerators, this is what we are working on now. So we had this manual accelerator from the 30s. We have actionable info. We have a lot of diagnostics along the accelerator. Now we are working on active assisted features like adaptive tuning or auto stopping of the accelerator, anomaly detection. And our hope is to make an automated system that would tune itself or would stop itself when it fails. And one of the applications of the accelerators, as we saw before, is radiation therapy. So really going from the first 2-year-old boy patient with a medical LINAC, a medical linear accelerator at Stanford, going to a fully automated machine where it diagnoses, proposes treatment, and then treats the patient. And here the patient is 100% clear. So with this in mind, I'd like to conclude my presentation, and I'd like to say that for me, what is most exciting and fascinating about science and engineering is the fact that I work with teams around the world on exciting projects and generating innovation. And from my experience, where innovation is in the air, something truly magical happens and everyone around get inspired. So with this in mind, I wish to all of us to always be inspired. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
I'm going to ask you a few questions, but in the meantime, while Adi and I are speaking, if anyone else has any questions, you can go to the Q&A feature at the bottom of the webinar window and type in your question. But let me start and kick it off, Adi. Could you please talk a little bit about your decision to focus on science at a young age as a young woman in Israel, and any encouragement or discouragement you received?
Okay. So I don't think I was either encouraged or discouraged for science. As a young girl, my parents signed me up into ballet and piano, as well as scientific program. One thing I do remember very vividly is that my dad used to give me a present every Chofish Gadol, every summer vacation. And this present included 2 booklets, exercise booklets, one in math and one in physics. And so I guess most kids won't really call these presents, but I finished those. And I can also say that my physics teacher, which was Ole Hadash from Russia, had a big influence on my decision to go to physics. He really challenged me and made me interested in physics. And I think many young kids at high school owe a lot to all the great math and physics teachers that came from Russia and taught us those days.
Great. And so your interest and brilliance in science brought you to Technion. Could you talk a little bit about the role and significance of Technion in both your education and now your career?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Technion is the best place to teach, to learn engineering, math, and physics in a comprehensive way. You know, some people say that Israel, the Technion is the Israeli MIT, you know, but we at the Technion, we say that MIT is the American Technion.
Love it.
So really, Technion really gives you all the basics that you need. And another thing that I think that in terms of social life, Technion is a great place. We have, I enjoyed playing in the rugby team. I was participating in student delegations, and I got a lot of support to every initiative and idea I had, which is outside of the curriculum. For example, we established a women club. We established an open day for high school girls, and I got support, 100% support from the Technion to do all of those activities.
Great. And so you're at the Technion, you're excelling in your studies, and you make a decision at some point that you will go to the United States and leave Israel, at least for a time. Could you talk about the decision as to why a young Israeli scientist would go to the United States, and then talk a little bit about what you noticed that was different in the United States versus your training and experience in Israel with science?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there are a few reasons. So the first reason is that the opportunities in the States are much greater than in Israel. In Israel, we have a lot of creativity, a lot of brain power, but we don't have the facilities. For example, we don't have a particle accelerator in Israel. So I must, even in my PhD, I had to travel to Slack to perform my experiments, which turned out to be great because I met my husband. But we just don't have the facilities here. And I think that having the resources can really push science forward. So this is one thing. And then the other thing is that one of the reasons to go pursue your postdoc abroad is to make connections, international connections, and bring ideas back to the Technion, which could, you know, further collaboration and make stronger connections and bring those new ideas and knowledge back to Israel. So this is the second reason of going abroad for a postdoc. And regarding your second question, what is different? So I think one big difference is in terms of culture. You know, Israelis tend to be very, very direct. And oftentimes I find myself needing a dictionary to translate between what my colleagues say to what they really mean.
In the United States.
In the United States, yeah. I'm still learning this American lingo. Like, for example, if my colleague would tell me, I'm not sure what I think about your idea, means that I know exactly what I think about your idea, and I think it's terrible. So those cultural differences still need to, yeah, I'm still learning them.
And I have just two more questions before I turn the floor over. So you had this tremendous success with the diagnostic invention early in your career, and some people have one great success and ride it and expand it. Others move on to new projects. Could you talk about your decision to sort of move on to other projects and new chapters after having this first very early but tremendous success?
Yeah, sure. Actually, the eyelid motion device was my bachelor degree project, which I continued pursuing through my students when I mentored them while I was doing my PhD. And to me, I would say that whenever the main core scientific question or the answer to the scientific question was established, I'd rather to move on to the next challenge and leave the details and to pursue the details, pursuing the details to my students under my guidance, of course. But I'd prefer to focus on new challenges in the scientific research.
Got it. And my last question is, could you talk a little bit about your sort of long-term goals and plan? I realize that plans change, but I assume or think that you have some goals in mind about what you hope to do and where you hope to do it.
Yeah, sure. I hope to go back to the Technion at some point and establish my own lab and do the research that I enjoy doing in particle accelerators and machine learning, and yeah.
And why Technion, back to Technion rather than staying at Stanford or MIT, recognizing that those are not the Technion?
Because those are not in Israel, and my heart is here. I have Haifa background. I have Haifa Bay as my background. Like, this is where my heart is. This is where I was born and raised. This is where I served the army. I want my kids to be Israeli, and this is where my family is. So after exploring all the world and getting all the connections, all the science, then this is home for me.
Great. Thank you, and I'll now turn it over to Vicki.
Thank you very much, Adi, David, thank you both. Adi, I want to just say thank you for taking the time to be with us today. I did not know that you were the first one in your family to pursue higher education. So I actually think I have a question that came out of that. Clearly, Technion was in your sights, but how did your pathway take you there? What took you to the Technion?
So actually, for me, it was clear that I will study at the Technion, as it's the best institution in Israel for fundamentals as engineering and physics and math. And to be honest, you can't see it right here, but I have, I think, 50 stairs that go directly to the electrical engineering department from my parents' house. So I was growing up, seeing the Technion's gate, and I was visiting there in open days, and it was clear to me that this is the best place for me to pursue my studies.
Thank you. I also wanted to ask you how your IDF service might have impacted your pathway and your decision to study what you were studying. Did it have an impact on it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure about that. In my military service, I did something completely different. I was serving in the intelligence, and I can't talk much about my military service, but Yeah, but when I finished with that, you know, I took this 1 year off that most of the Israelis do, is went backpacking around the world, and then came back and decided to study electrical engineering, because it's really the um, the a very broad umbrella of of subjects around it. So you can do semiconductors, and you can do machine learning and computer science and physics and energy. So many different topics. So I'd realized that this would be the best for someone that is very, you know, curious and want to learn a little bit from everything and then decide.
Thank
So.
you. One of the things that we always talk about as staff at the American Technion is the interdisciplinary collaboration. Can you
Right.
tell a little bit about the other departments that you worked with to do your research and how that led to your projects?
Yeah, of course. So we collaborate with the Faculty of Medicine and with the Faculty of Mechanical Engineering. And there is a lot of crosstalk between the different professors from the different disciplines. And this is real fun. And I know that with the new Technion leadership, they also very intentional and strategic about this cross-pollination between the different disciplines. So this is great. They have this center of, you know, they make centers rather than faculties, and each center could be composed of a few faculties. So now a professor could have students from different faculties. So this really makes the system much more rich, I think.
Yes, thank you. I agree. Can you tell me a little bit about where you see the future in regards to AI and the work that you're doing, and if there's any like ethical challenges or debate about how that will affect your work?
Yeah, so you know, I'm doing artificial intelligence in a field of particle accelerators. So we don't deal, you know, with medical records and stuff like this, where really ethical issues takes place. So for us, it's more of a working in safety critical systems. So we need to make sure that our algorithms are not, you know, not exploring things wildly, but they are more conservative of what they do. So we don't get trips, because, for example, downtime in an accelerator, in a particle accelerator, could cause could take around 5 to 10 hours to fix this problem, and would cause around what is 1 hour of operating an accelerators is around 60,000 US dollars. So it would cost around 300,000 US dollars. So every operational hour is very, very important. So what we really want to do, we want to write smart algorithms that enhance the machine without breaking it.
Thank you. I want to just go back to time at the Technion too. I think one of the questions people ask a lot of alumni is, what's the greatest challenge? What was your greatest challenge there? It's certainly a difficult environment, and I'd love to know what you thought the biggest challenge was in your work there.
At the Technion?
Yes.
My biggest challenge, let's see. I think, wow, that's a hard one.
We can come back to it. You know, we can think about it for a little bit.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges for me was to keep track during my PhD, is to keep track with all my studies and international conference, and you know, my colleagues abroad, and make them happy with all the experiments, and at the same time to teach. I was also teaching at the Technion, and I was teaching very basic courses at the electrical engineering department, and we had 400 students each semester. So to, you know, kind of split yourself between teaching and doing it in the best way you can do, and also doing the research in the best way. So I think this was one great challenge for me. The other thing, it's not concerned with research, but it's concerned with being a woman in research, which I sometimes find a little bit difficult, especially in this particle accelerator world, which is man-dominated.
Sure. And I'm sure, did you get a lot of support from female colleagues in order to help you through those challenging times?
Yes, of course. And we also established a female club at the Technion, and to support each other and to welcome new students, new high school girls, or, you know, new female students. So I think that this support is very important.
Thank you. Yes. And I had another question about how the pandemic and COVID-19 has affected your research. I'm sure it's been challenging in many ways. So if you could talk a little bit about direct research. So, thanks.
Yeah, so luckily, because you remember the slide I showed with the coffee and the laptop? So luckily we could connect the accelerators from home. So I'm sitting at home with my pajama and controlling the accelerators. And since I'm mostly writing algorithms those days, so I could continue my research. You know, of course, we didn't have childcare, and I had to take shifts with my husband, and oftentimes I was working with Ronnie on my laptop, on my lap. Sorry, and yeah, she was on my laptop as well. So for me, really, the pandemic didn't slow anything at work. So we were fortunate on this side. We wanted to work hard so people could, for example, take this particle accelerator and image the coronavirus, right? I showed you how they image proteins. So a lot of usage, actually the only usage we do these days during this emergency times is to use this for corona studies, COVID-19 studies. Yeah.
Great. Yes, that was going to be my follow-up question, how you were working with the researchers who were working on the pandemic. So thank you. Well, I think I'm going to turn it back over to David now, and we can close out. And I again want to thank you so much for your interesting program and for taking the time to be with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Adi and Vicky. That was absolutely terrific, incredibly interesting, and a wonderful way to showcase Technion's best and brightest. We appreciate everyone's questions and wish we could have addressed even more. Adi, we look forward to hearing more about your many future endeavors, and thank you for all the great work you're doing. To our audience, we hope you enjoyed today's webinar and look forward to once again bringing the Technion closer to you. Be on the lookout for invitations to future webinars and virtual gatherings in your local community, as well as with the national ATS community. If you have any questions or want to learn more or are interested in supporting the Technion, please reach out to Vicky Booter in the Bay Area or Pam Wool, who's the Senior Director of Development in Southern California. Again, everyone, thank you very much, and Shana Tova Matuka.
Shana Tova. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.